Why rich people love pretending to be poor?
This is Hannah Nealman. Hannah and her husband Daniel own Ballerina Farm. On this farm, the Nealmans live a picturesque farmhouse lifestyle with their children in tow. The farm looks like it was made in the 1800s, and the family kind of does too. Hannah records this quaint farm life and publishes it all online to her combined 8 million followers.
Sheesh!
The video showed the Nealmans' life on this adorable, modest homestead. Hannah spends her days baking rustic loaves of bread from scratch or hand-milking cows with her children. It's very pastoral and very romantic. The videos seem to...
There is a lot of romanticizing farm, not just farm life, but like rustic rural life on social media. But like, it sucks. It would suck. People wouldn't like it. It's like more boring and harder, and to really run it right, it's like a ton of work. People just like the aesthetic. I think they just like the idea of like, I don't know. I think they find, I think there's a general sense, and I can agree with this, is like the fast-paced nature of modern life and the stresses of everything being on social media and having to, I don't know, try to like build a brand of also what you're working on. And I think people like the idea of simplicity, but it's actually not. I mean, there's a reason this is mostly in the past. It's not a great way to live.
To say, hey, we live in an old, rundown farm and we make the best of what we have.
And also, I mean, he's gonna explain this here, I'm sure, but like, it's because they have money. Because I think an actual farmer, the thing that stress comes from is the need to pay bills generally. And I think if you are in any position where you have bills to pay, that is the motivator all the time that makes you have stress, that makes you have to do something. The landed gentry who have inherited wealth and own land, I mean, they can do whatever the fuck they want, and it could be fun, I guess, as a pastime. But if you have to run the farm at a profit, it becomes harder.
It's all genuinely quite charming. Except Hannah and Daniel are billionaires. Daniel's father
They're billionaires?
founded JetBlue Airlines, and Daniel is the heir to that empire. This fact is left out of all of their videos, I would argue, quite conspicuously.
There's a pin. It's like when people want to leave smartphones, like, what? Yeah, I mean, smartphones are generally pretty dope, but they have caused untold harm. I mean, I wish there was a world where we got the good stuff. I pinned it? Oh, I didn't mean to pin it. Well, it's a great message. Consider it pinned. That's a classic Atrioc pin, dude. I find the gold and I bring it to the top. Yeah, I think it is a brain melter. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that after 2010, which is the year, not just smartphones got big, but they hit 50% of all people having them. And then also social media got big. I think social media has done a lot more damage than smartphones generally, but they're hand in hand. And after 2010, teen depression skyrockets, ADHD treatment skyrockets, darker stuff like suicide attempts skyrocket. All that stuff is very correlated to 2010 specifically, which is the main thing that happened that year, is like finally mass adoption of social media. So there's probably some downsides to smartphones in a way that we can't really see because we get fucking super hooked. But also, like, they're pretty dope. It is just cool to not have like the original idea of the iPhone, where it's like we have the iPod and your phone and a computer, and it's one device and it can do everything. So you could do email, and you could do texting, and you could do calls, and you could do songs. That's fucking cool. It's like, that is a great idea. It just, once you add it in with us constantly performing, it got harder.
I don't think the Nealmans are pretending to be poor, but they are co-opting poverty as an aesthetic, or at least some bizarre fictional version of it. Poverty in the modern world is not baking bread or milking cows, and we'll talk about that later. But this video is not about putting Hannah and her family on blast, because A, who cares, and B, the Nealmans are not the first rich people to treat poverty like a fashion statement. What they are doing is not unique at all. Rather, it is a symptom of a much more popular phenomenon that's been around for a really long time. Longer than you probably think. Today, though, beamed through social media by influencers and celebrities alike, it all feels especially depraved. Why is this happening? Why is being poor the new being rich? Marie Antoinette was the last queen of France before the French Revolution. Goes without saying, she was extremely, extremely wealthy. Indeed, she was known for her opulent lifestyle.
Yeah, she lived
During her reign, Marie Antoinette built what is called La Hameau de la Reine, or the Little Hamlet. She recruited workers to create a modest village for her, basically in her backyard.
Okay.
It was designed to look like an everyday peasant village, complete with farm animals like goats, cows, and sheep.
So she
Altogether, the queen built 5 brand new buildings. These cottages
She
mimicked
role-played
those found in the
poverty?
ideal French countryside. Of course, without all the dirt, starvation, and rampant
That part sucks.
disease.
She LARPed?
One of the cottages was made for the queen and her immediate attendants, while the others housed the peasants who actually worked on the farm. If stories are to be believed, Marie Antoinette often found herself bored and or frustrated by the trappings of royalty. Okay. When the world just got to be too much for her, the queen would go to her farm and dress up like a peasant. Literally. Marie Antoinette would change from her royal garb into peasant clothes, into a plain muslin dress.
She gets it. She
and maybe some friends would milk cows, tend gardens, and play with animals. After a few days of make-believing she was poor, Marie Antoinette would return to her royal lifestyle. In fairness, this story isn't really accepted as fact by historians. It's something like an urban legend.
I see.
But the fact that it has persisted tends to indicate a degree of plausibility.
Okay.
It feels like something that tasteless, out-of-touch rich people like Marie Antoinette would do.
It actually feels like too much
Because
work.
it is. We don't have to go that far back in time to find it happening. Kim Kardashian recently did a photo shoot where she dressed up like a milkmaid. This is eerily similar to the tales about Marie Antoinette in a way that
not
is
just like a boobs
simultaneously
thing?
repulsive, dystopian, and
I don't know if that's a
wholly
poverty thing. I think that's like a...
The luxury brand Balenciaga sold dirty shoes with holes in them for $2,000. Retail giant Urban Outfitters.
Wait, really? 2 racks? Should I cop though? I mean, what do you guys think? Would that be cool? I mean, if people think I'm cool, if even one person thinks I'm cool, then it's worth any price. $2,000. That's fucking crazy.
Holes in them for $2,000. Retail giant Urban Outfitters has said their aesthetic is, quote, upscale homeless. All of this is super weird and feels kind of out of touch. The whole fake poor thing can also be seen in the entire phenomenon of van life. I'm sure there are plenty of van lifers that are not rich. But I know, and everyone else knows, that a lot of van lifers are
Dude, fake poor is for people that are... It like loops back around. You have to get to the top level of rich before... Like, I'm in the class where it's people that are around my income level are people that are always wasting their money trying to buy symbols of luxury so they can pretend they're one level up. Everyone I know that's around where I'm at is always like trying to buy the car they can't really afford, or first class seat, or it's like they're just trying to get to the level of like, hey, I'm actually really rich. And then I think once you get to actual billionaire class, they're like, okay, fuck, I gotta hide it. I don't know anybody that is like trying to do fake poor or buying a 14K CSGO knife. Exactly. Aiden should be first against the wall when you have guillotine.
20-somethings who came from money. I mean, these vans can cost north of $100,000. Van lifers have basically just gentrified homelessness. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with living in a van, but it is a very obvious example of the rich pretending in some way to be poor. Rich van lifers can be poor without the hard parts about actually being poor. They have safety nets. They don't have to struggle to eat. When rich people live in a van, it's cool. When poor people do it, they're seen as somehow less than. But all of this gets really boring. Who cares what rich people do? Sitting around complaining about it, rattling off chief offenders, is not a worthwhile use of time.
It's kind of fun, though.
What is really interesting, though, are the reasons why rich people love to act poor and what it says about our world. Perhaps the number one way to show off wealth has always been some form of exceptionalism. The rules of society don't apply to a person because they are wealthy, and they want to broadcast that. Look at this huge house. Look at this expensive car. I have all of these things, and they make me different from regular society. I am rich, therefore I am exceptional. The standards and expectations of real life do not apply to me. You can tell by the way my life is, by the things I own. So,
one thing I'll say is I don't know if van life is a trapping of rich people pretending to be poor. I think there's some people that do van life for content because they thought it could work. But I thought a lot of people tried van life because they thought it would be fun and let them travel and avoid on rent. And it turned out it just sucks. I just think van life generally is like portrayed on social media as more fun than it is, and it actually kind of sucks. And then a lot of people tried it off of mistaken belief that it could save them money. But I don't know if it was necessarily cosplaying poor. I think it's a different thing.
keeping that in mind. Today we live in a world inundated by, well, everything. We are expected to both produce and consume as much as possible. Our entire lives revolve around work, which is just a way to produce goods or services, or more accurately, money. The first thing we ask people is what they do for a living, which is basically just another way to ask what they produce. Your level of production is perhaps the most valued trait.
I don't ask that. The first thing I ask people is, are you subscribed to me on YouTube? And then if they're not, I say, oh, well, don't worry about that. Pull out your phone. And then and they say, what? And I say, yeah, pull out your phone. You have the YouTube app, right? And they go, yeah, man, I guess. Oh, perfect. And then I take the phone firmly. I grab the phone just so they don't try to run off with it. And then I open the YouTube app. I pull up my thing and I hit a subscribe button. And then I say, I'll check. I'll check to make sure you're subscribed, so don't unsubscribe. I'm just joking, but for real. And then I laugh, and then I put the phone back. That's how I greet myself, and I've made a lot of friends that way. So
in modern Western society. So what if you can go live on a farm? What if you can spend all day producing a single loaf of bread, and that's it? In a world driven by productivity, producing nothing is the most exceptional, elite thing you can do. Information overload was once something we struggled with. Now it's just something we must endure in order to survive. We have to be constantly plugged in, or we can't do our jobs. We can't be connected to our families or our loved ones. Without a constant stream of news, we become ignoramuses who don't pay attention to the world around us. But if you have enough money, you have the privilege of escaping this reality. You don't need to deal with information overload. You can just bake your bread on your farm or whatever.
yeah,
Pop singer Ed Sheeran famously doesn't have a phone.
neither
But
does
I
Kendrick.
guarantee you, he pays someone to have a phone for him. Being completely removed from the world around us has always been a hallmark of the rich. But today's world looks very different than it once did. So being removed from it does as well. Perhaps people are so fed up with the rat race that winning it is no longer aspirational. Instead, ducking out of it altogether is the pinnacle of success.
I think this is slightly wrong. People do this, and it is a thing, but I think our society still values wealth a great deal. I think people unironically respect it, even though we are slowly realizing that it doesn't actually equal more intelligence. For most of the time, we have idolized tech billionaires, founders, uber wealthy people. Being the richest man in the world has always been a status symbol. I think only recently people are starting to turn against that, but that is like most of the past 10 years. And I still think for like a lot of like popular culture, people still love to flex. I still think it's like we're not at the level where I think this guy's talking about. I think this is like a very niche. This is almost like rich people to other rich people, almost.
Today there is a growing voice of disdain for the ultra-wealthy. Anyone can hear it, whether you are part of it or not. The types of media being produced, the rise of Bernie Sanders, the general discourse in America. People don't like the rich in the way they perhaps used to. Every week, the rich are being blamed, maybe deservedly, for many of the problems in our society. But by pretending to endure a struggle, the rich hope to gain two things: acceptance and respect. When celebrities or influencers dress up like milkmaids and play farmhouse, they are saying, hey, I'm like you, I have struggles, things are hard for me. So the idea is that regular people will accept them. The irony here, of
Stay
course,
strong.
is that these people are
Stay
so
strong,
far
rich people.
removed from poverty, they have no clue how to even imitate it. The contemporary struggle does not take place in a farmhouse. By pretending to have struggles, the rich also tap into the idea of the world as a meritocracy. Rich people show themselves struggling with the implication that they deserve their wealth because they worked hard just like everybody else. The hope, perhaps, is that this will produce a respect for the so portrayed hard work that earned the rich their wealth. Last year, when asked what advice she had for women looking for success, Kim Kardashian said they just needed to get their asses up and work.
Oh, I remember that. That was
obviously
crazy.
misguided advice.
That was
but it was also a
crazy.
message to viewers that, hey, look at me. I've worked hard. You should like me. I deserve what I have. Maybe. Maybe not. But the point remains, this is incredibly bad advice that feeds into an absolutely bogus narrative, and we will come back to that.
That message changed my life.
So what? Who cares? Rich people can do whatever they want.
You are a person that wasn't working hard until one day you heard Kim Kardashian say, get your ass up and work, and you said that's motivating, and that got you out of bed to start putting in the hours. That gave you the motivation you needed to push past the pain. That's awesome. She really is an inspiring queen.
Their money or their influence, what difference does it make? Well, it's just ethically bankrupt to dress up as poor people for a day. It's gross on a moral level. Beyond that, it is tremendously important for people to have some genuine grasp of other people's experiences. Fictionalized, Pinterest-ready poverty is not a true reflection of real
Pinterest-ready
poverty.
poverty is a good statement.
Choosing to live simply is not the same as being forced to. Performative poverty is a farcical, misleading representation of a very real struggle that millions have to endure every day. High-profile rich people have an enormous amount of cultural influence. When they romanticize poverty, it makes poverty...
You know what's interesting this reminds me of, though? I think this would apply to someone like Asmongold, but I don't think he does it on purpose. I think he legitimately doesn't. I don't think he's doing a bit. Yeah, same with Adam Sandler. Like, I guess you could say that Adam Sandler is like portraying himself as more of an everyman with the way he dresses and stuff. And I could be wrong. I mean, he's got publicists and everything, but I feel like he legitimately would do that, right? You know, I don't know. I guess I'm trying to. I can definitely see it for people that are doing like fake farmhouses on Instagram. But I don't know that it applies to every person who doesn't just dress, who's rich but doesn't dress or act rich, especially if they didn't start that way. Like Elon being a gamer. I know that Elon does talk about gamer shit as part of his need to be loved by Redditors. But I also believe Elon Musk unironically plays and enjoys Elden Ring, even with the worst build of all time. So I don't know. I think Elon's posts are more of an example than him just... It's a weird thing to wrap my head around. Bezos driving an old beater. I mean, Warren Buffett does this fucking full stop. Warren Buffett is 92-year-old multi-billionaire, third richest man in the world. And he like talks all the time about how he eats McDonald's every day and drives in his simple house in his simple car. And it's like, he's been running that shtick for a long time. And it's made him like this wise old grandpa figure, but he does ruthlessly own a lot of businesses that he tries to make into monopolies. Like, there's a lot of things that I have learned from reading Warren Buffett's writings, but it's planned, bro. He drives his house, he might as well. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's an act with Buffett. He's literally that guy. It's just tough to say, right? Because it benefits him so much that it's tough to say.
Poverty seem like a non-issue. It makes people think that struggling perhaps isn't so bad. Perhaps it's kind of cool. At the very least, it causes the widespread acceptance of poverty. And so there is no large-scale interest in doing anything about this huge...
When I was little, I ate dinner at the CEO of Patagonia's house, and he spent the entire evening bitching about 40-year-old climbing beef. Oh, like beef among climbers? It's kind of based. Does Asmon act poor, though? No. That's what I'm saying. I don't think Asmon acts at all. But I think this video would apply to him, which is why I'm trying to tease out this video and figure out if I fully agree with it.
Problem. This also diminishes attention on all of the issues that fall under the umbrella of poverty. When it becomes cool or even normal to be poor, no one really does anything about systemic poverty. You see, the reality is poverty isn't a necessity. Our society doesn't need to have people who literally starve to death. We have a lot of money in the Western world. There are things we could actually do. But as long as we accept poverty...
I hope he's not talking about taking away Jeff Bezos' yacht. I feel like he's getting to something, but if he is even 1% thinking about taking away Jeff's mega yacht that had to destroy a bridge to get out to sea, I think we should jail him. Because that's a ridiculous thing to say. He earned that yacht. And as an American, I feel safer knowing that our business leaders have yachts like that. I feel like a stronger country.
As part of our society, it simply isn't a problem. It's just built in. When the uber-rich romanticize poverty, they often paint a picture of a lower-class person working hard and overcoming their circumstances. This is possible, but it's not universally possible. There are many, many poor people who work hard every day and will still be poor forever. To pretend otherwise is to absolve a system that has put millions of people into poverty. This narrative puts too much responsibility on the individual and not enough culpability on the world and circumstances around that individual. Without culpability, there can be no change. We should not forget how depraved poverty is as a concept. Humans should not have to struggle so much just to exist.
Yeah,
in society.
agree.
People shouldn't have to live that way. People deserve to be happy.
It's funny because right when he said people deserve, it popped up with the horses button. So I thought he was going to say people deserve horses, which I agree is another way. I think if we can't redistribute the income, we should redistribute the horses. If you are verifiably below the poverty line, you should get a free horse. And that can sell for a lot of money. I half agree with this, but you could be rich from inheritance and just prefer to be a farmer. Maybe. The thing is, I've made my stance on this clear many times, but I personally think inheritance is the worst form of wealth. I am in favor of the largest estate taxes. I am the most upset with people that have inherited wealth. I am honestly, though it is still a problem, I just don't get that riled up anger at someone like Jeff Bezos starting out as a $1 million net worth and building a gigantic company and being worth a lot more than me. I understand there should be some limit, and I also think he should be taxed more, but the fact that really pisses me off is that his great grandkids are going to have better opportunities than anyone in here's great grandkids, regardless of effort, regardless of work ethic, regardless of interest or innovation or anything, just because of what he did this time. Wealth inheritance makes me more frustrated than most things. And then just in general, I think the many loopholes in our tax system that are beneficial to the extreme top are frustrating. So the government should have his money? Yeah. Yes. After he's dead? Yeah. And then it should be used for the public good. Yeah. 100%. By the way, we did this before. And that was when we had higher trust in our government institutions. We had a bigger middle class. We had more company startups by non 1% founders. We had, just a lot of things that had a thriving economy that worked for most people. And then we reduced it all. Reduced all of the top 1% taxes, reduced all of the wealth, the inheritance taxes. What are you going to leave for your kid? I think this type of argument is kind of a shitty one, right? Where it's someone points out a flaw that is societal wide and wants a change where the rules apply equally to everyone. And then you say, why don't you just out of the goodness of your heart, throw a drop in the bucket? It'll change nothing, but that's what you want. And it's that's not what I'm saying, bro. Sure, I could do it or not. But what I'm saying is I want the rules to be applied and enforced on everyone so that we can change something on a larger level. It's like if I was here's the example I use for gamers, right? Imagine I'm a pro player and my livelihood is playing League of Legends. Gross. I'm a pro mid laner. And somehow I'm in Worlds. I'm in North America. We got to Worlds. Okay? And on this patch, let's say fucking Katarina is super broken. Just busted. Okay? Now, at the same time as I am complaining to Riot, hey, please nerf Katarina. It's really boring having to only play Katarina. If I'm in tournament, I'm also going to pick Katarina. I can simultaneously play the game that I'm dealt to try and win and also complain about the balance. Do you understand? I want things to change. I want a balance patch to change things, but I'm not going to not pick this champion because I want to win the tournament. Do you understand that? I'm trying to explain it as a gamer. So, you know, if the rules are the way they are, then I have to try to make money because the money's the only thing that's valued in society. And I have to try to pass it on to my kids because that's the only thing that gives them a leg up. But I would prefer a world where there's a heavy inheritance tax on everyone, equally enforced. And people have to start from ground zero, basically, or very little. But they're in a great baseline where there's a nice social safety net, where there's no fear of abject poverty, where they have free healthcare. And then, like, I'm not so worried about leaving them a lot of money because they're in a safe spot in a safe country and they can build their own opportunity. That's my ideal. But because that doesn't exist, I have to do the opposite. I don't even think that's social. It's so funny that I think that I'm not anti the extreme. I think we have this similar ideals, but I'm not a socialist. It's just so funny because a lot of things I feel like I'm describing are like super basic things that were even in America not long ago. They were like, during Joe Biden's lifetime, we had all these things and we got rid of them. And then everyone's acting like to get them back is socialism, which is crazy. Why is it being a social good thing? It's not a bad thing. I'm just saying I'm not, because I think I, more than the average socialist in my chat, sincerely believe in the power of regulated markets to create, pull people out of poverty, create wealth, innovate. I believe in all that stuff. I think it works. I actually think, I just think when it gets to that later stage and they get control of all of the government, then it goes to shit. Inherited wealth was still around during high taxes. It just wouldn't last for generations unless you made something with it. Yeah, but they had a much higher inheritance tax. They had higher top marginal tax rate and higher inheritance tax. So it's like, it was more difficult for just a pure non-contribution generation. You know, just generations of people doing fucking nothing or wasting money, and the family wealth is gone very quickly. And now it's like almost impossible to get rid of money once you have it. Basically, FDR, Giga Chad, Reagan, cringe. Yeah, basically. Yeah. Do you believe that VC actually does more for pushing innovation than our educational institution / government, though? I think there's something people fail to mention when they make the argument. There's a lot of people I hear make the argument that, like, a lot of our innovations came from the government. Like, radio was invented by the government, and the technology in your iPhone was invented by public funding, and it's like, some of that is true, but to be honest, the ability for people to like take it and find a way to market it to get rich is what makes them mass produced. Whenever you put things in a lab for just people to discover, they end up never making it to wider market and getting cheaper and in everyone's hands. All that stuff requires somebody to take the risk of trying to find a way to turn it into a business that then gives it scale. Someone inventing it is way different than someone turning it into a commercially viable business that everyone can get access to. Lithium-ion batteries existed for a long time until Tesla founders came along and said, let's put them in cars. Yeah, I think the combination of the two has done really well. But again, I'm not saying, listen, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I don't care. I actually don't care what you believe. I don't think even if every fucking 3,000 people in this chat all got on the same page, it would not change anything. So I am just telling you what I have built up as my belief system over reading and thinking about it a lot for a long time. And that's where I'm currently at. And in 10 years, I'll think differently. And I think different than I thought 10 years ago. And I'll keep thinking. That's how I see it. So are we eating the rich or not? I just wish we would tax them, bro. What do you think of the argument that capitalism inevitably leans towards those relations, corporate interests, and they were always going to try, right? And I think at some point there's a need to push back. I think every system tends towards entropy, if that's what you're saying. No matter what economic system we're on, there's going to be some people that are going to chip away at it for their personal benefit. And people, once they get, mass comfortable or lazy, we let that chipping get farther and farther until usually it's a breaking point, and then we have to fucking fix it again. Even if today we all got into fucking a perfect socialist utopia and we all agreed on it, There would be people that slowly chip away at it, chip away at it for their own personal benefit. And if we all got complacent, then they would eventually corrupt the system. It doesn't matter what system we're in. That's why I like generally a system where it's got the mix of public and private. Do you think those changes are possible in our lifetimes? I think the changes I'm talking about are. That's why I like them too. The why I like the beliefs I have is because I like the very simple argument that like all of the things I'm arguing for existed in America during many elected leaders' lifetimes. They all existed before, they worked well, and I want to bring them back. What keeps the people that would be the top tax bracket from leaving? Genuine concern for me. Okay, let's say, for example, that you had a reasonable tax system that taxed, for example, corporations where business is done. Let's say, for example, Apple could not say that all of their profits are booked in Ireland and don't pay any tax. And they had to pay tax on the dollars made off American consumers with American tax. If you had to do that, then they could not just say, hey, we're going to fuck this, we're going to walk. Because they would lose access to all of the many American consumers that make their money. They would be forced to play. Like if they walked out, then someone else would just make a phone and take their market share in America. Like they have much less leverage than they pretend they have. And same with rich people. Like if you told them you're going to tax them in their country, they're like, well, I'll just leave. I'll go to a different country. Okay, fine. But they want to live in LA and New York and these cities. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's a fake threat. It's an empty threat. Straight up, I genuinely would rather have the rich die and leave their money to the family to make donations and shit than have the government spend it at this point. This is a successful game that they've played, which is that they chip away at the funding for basic government services, things people like institutions that have worked for a long time. They chip away the funding and make them worse. And then people complain. And then they say, look, this shit sucks. We should cut their funding more. And you know what I'm saying? So they make it worse, then you complain about it, and they use that to justify further tax cuts and further defunding. But there was a time when there was actually pretty high trust in institutions. And that was when they were well funded, when we had fairer top 1% tax rates. And that stuff actually worked for people. I think you've been played by a game that they use to justify not funding anything for the public good. Why are the rich able to get away with evading so much tax? Well, they don't just evade it. I mean, the problem is like the printed rates are too low. There's too many like on the books legal loopholes. They're like, even if they didn't do any evasion, like they're 100% legal, they just don't pay enough compared to what they used to. There's on top of that, there's also, pretty rampant, like sketchy borderline tax evasion. I think the role of a tax lawyer is a crazy one. Once you get to a certain level of wealth, you don't just have an accountant, like just do the normal taxes of what your income. There's like a lawyer whose only job is to argue, to make arguments of the shadier things that you're doing, to say like this counts as X, 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 X. Like that's, I think that the whole tax lawyer thing is a crazy level of, I think most people are confused. In most cases, the rich are the ultra mega rich in case spoken about. Yeah, I mean, I think people are on the same page about that. I'm not talking about a dentist who like does well. I'm talking about the people that make tens of billions. Why don't we just make a system where people will all make a massive vote to choose things? We could vote someone to represent our thoughts and then make them do all the work. I think you're being facetious, but I also think like, I've thought about this recently too. I don't know that democracy as we have it, I think it's being stretched pretty thin by our modern attention spans. I think a more representative democracy where we like vote someone locally and then that person votes someone in a larger region. They all vote together for what, and then everyone regionally votes for someone for their state, and then every state vote. I think direct democracy at the highest level means nobody knows what the fuck's going on about anything. Like, I don't like the idea that, and myself included, I'm guilty of this. Like, most people know the presidential candidates and they vote down ballot. Whoever presidential candidate that voted that year, they just vote down ballot for them, which means they have no fucking idea who they're voting for 99% of things on there. Yeah, that's, I mean, that's useless. That is useless. So I don't know. I wish we had a different system. What is voting down ballot? It's like, let's say you are diehard Trump, right? So you go, you get your ballot and you check the box for Trump. And then for the next 4 pages, There's like a bazillion other candidates or like different positions, like local government, like who you're going to vote for local sheriff, who's you're going to vote for senator, who you're going to vote for governor, who's going to vote for comptroller. And people just go down and they vote everyone underneath Trump's name because everyone has political parties. So you go R, 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 or D, 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 whatever candidate you voted for, most people just check the boxes. So you have no idea who these people are. Like it's like Jenny Smith for sheriff. I don't know who she is, but she's under Trump's name, so I vote for her if I voted for Trump. I think that's a very common way of voting. That means like almost every election is useless. I mean, it only depends on which presidential candidate's most popular. People don't have time or care to figure it out, but I don't blame them. I think it would be cool if everyone had to know like one local representative, ideally someone that they've maybe even interacted with or know, because then you're very likely to know their character. And I think we get fewer psychopaths. At this point, can't you just say capitalism is fundamentally flawed and pushes millions into poverty? It's also pulled millions out of poverty, bro. I think I'm not like inherently against whatever you're talking about, bro. I'm saying that like if you look at all countries in history, we've tried a lot of systems. Most of them work out poorly. And I don't believe in random, like this time it's different, this time it'll be utopia. I think we got to go with like, there's a human instinct towards, I got to get mine. And when I look at human history, I find these pocketed periods, and one of them is post-FDR New Deal, where it's like things worked for a lot of people. Things were generally helpful. Things were generally successful. What's your take on the potential for RFK Jr. to run independently and that's finally start post-election system? I don't think RFK Jr. is popular enough to pull us out of the two-party system. I think it'll happen, though. I think most Americans are fed up with the two-party system. And I've already said this. It'll be like Mr. Beast. This is my long shot prediction. Come back to me in 15 years. It's not gonna, maybe not him exactly I'm talking about, but it's going to be somebody who has a massive direct to consumer media base, like a Mr. Beast. Someone who can completely leapfrog the requirement of having to go through Democrat or Republican parties. And they're gonna, you know, like The Rock running independently could make an impact. It's going to be celebrity. I mean, it's not a good thing, but that's what's going to happen. Reagan was a celeb. Yeah, I'm just talking about somebody doing it without having to go through a party. Kanye ran independently and got no votes. Parties are too ingrained in voters. I don't think Kanye's campaign was a real one, and I don't think Kanye is the candidate you want to point to as like the perfect example. Kanye had some pretty problems of his own, bro. XUC eating his toenails at the White House would be a banger. President XUC would be a crazy one. Do you think a politician who's already won an election and established themselves as more constituent focused could pull it off like John Fetterman? No, because here's the deal. I legitimately think most Americans don't know any politician. I think most Americans don't know the fucking vice president, bro. I think they don't know anyone other than the presidents. They know the presidential thing and that's it. And, you know, a lot of us are terminally online and are a little more plugged in and know more than the average person. But like, I'm of the belief that most people don't care at all. And certainly not enough to like have a strong stance one way or another on different individual races. I have a strong stand on races, Mr. Atrioc. They're all equal. We weren't talking about that, but hero. That's based. That's powerful. I'm glad we have people like you leading us forward. Does Biden have a first lady? I haven't seen any info on this. You haven't seen any info on this? You couldn't Google it? It's Jill Biden. Yeah. It's not a dark secret. Or is it? What conspiracy is going on there? It's getting to the point where I want to leave the U.S. when my only other citizenship is Canadian. It's even worse there. What do you mean? Canada does some things right. I don't know. Listen, I'm sticking it out in the U.S. of A. It's just more expensive in Canada. True. Become rich and do a golden passport in Greece. What's a golden passport? Is that where you spend a bunch of money and they give you a citizenship? I want you guys to know, like, if you're talking about economic problems, like if you're like, oh, I'm going to leave America because somewhere else has better housing, there's nowhere in the world. Everywhere is bad. I want you to know that basically every country on earth is having an incredible hangover from 15 years of easy money. It's happening everywhere. Everything is having economic cracks, rising bankruptcies, rising interest rates, rising mortgage payments, overpriced assets, overpriced houses, It's happening all over. Is King Charles the only bloke who doesn't need a passport? What does that mean? What do you mean? I really don't know what that means.